Can't wait for 2 hours.
2 hours, 2 hours tonight. But I'm glad she does worship because now I have the voice to speak to you guys for 2.5 hours. It's 7:21. You guys will be out of here by 10. Guarantee it.
Bye.
Guarantee y'all we'll be out of here by 10.
Be out by 1 in the morning.
By 4 in the morning.
You're here now.
I'm nervous. That's a little
You're here now. Your parents will be here at 10. I already let them know. But anyways, my name's Cole. I'm the youth leader here at Shift. I'm really grateful to see all of you today. The title of my sermon is going to be The Lions and the Fire, right? And to give you a little context, we're going to be doing a 2-week series. This week, we're going to cover the Lions and the Fire. Next week, we're going to cover the life of Nebuchadnezzar. But right now, I've just been reading out of Daniel and just really grateful at what the Lord has shown me through Daniel. And I hope that I can show you guys some stuff tonight just to show you some of the great things the Lord has done throughout the Bible, throughout the Old Testament, throughout the book of Daniel. Just really hope I can show you guys that tonight. But some context first. We're going to start out of Daniel chapter 1. And this is at a time where there are 2 kingdoms of Israel, right? There is the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel, right? And the kingdom of Israel was unfaithful, but the kingdom of Judah was faithful for a while. And at this point in time, they're starting to become unfaithful. And there is a king over them. His name is Jehoiakim, right? And in Daniel 1, verse 1, it tells us, in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. If you don't know what besieged means, I know it's a big word. I looked it up too because I wanted to define it. I wanted to have an exact definition for what it was. But besieged basically means surrounds it. So Nebuchadnezzar, if you aren't familiar with ancient war tactics, a lot of times these countries or these nations would try and surround the other city before they would come and take it, so that they'd be surrounded on all sides and not have anywhere to escape to. But so Nebuchadnezzar is king of Babylon, and he surrounds the land and then takes the land. And then we're going to skip past verse 2, go to verse 3, and it says, while Nebuchadnezzar is the king, it tells us that he commanded Ashpenaz, his chief eunuch, basically his chief servant, the second in command in the kingdom of Babylon, to bring some of the people of Israel, both of the royal family and of the nobility, youths without blemish, of good appearance, and skillful in all wisdom, endowed with knowledge, understanding, learning, and competent to stand in the king's palace, and to teach them the literature and language of the Chaldeans. So basically, first off, the Chaldeans are the people of Babylon. But Nebuchadnezzar wants to have some of the Israelites come so that they're represented. He doesn't want all of these Israelites in this newfound kingdom that he has conquered. He doesn't want them all to hate him. So he wants to get to know some of these Israelites, bring them in, have some of them feel represented while he's king of the land, because that's just what people do. He wants to be nice to these people instead of hatred towards all of the Israelites. He wants to get to know some of the Israelites more, and he wants to bring in 4 of the best people that the Israelites have. He wants these youths without blemish. He wants them to be among the nobility, which means that they're important people. Most of the Israelites will know them. He wants them to be of good appearance, to be wise, to have knowledge, to understand learning, and he wants to teach them the literature and language of these Babylonian people so that he can plant a seed into the ground that will be going on for generations and generations, so that these Israelites will become a lot more like the Babylonians. So Nebuchadnezzar finds these Israelites to come, right? And we go into verse 5, I think it is. And he finds Daniel, he finds Azariah, he finds Hananiah, and Mishael, right? Those are the 4 he finds. Well, I'll tell you what their names mean later. But the king assigned them a daily portion of the food that the king ate. He wanted these people to feast with him. He wanted them to have wine with them. They were to be educated, and at the end of the time, they were going to stand before the king. He was going to judge them after. But like it says, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Those were the 4 people that he found, right? And he wanted all of them to feast with him and to drink wine. He wanted them to become like the Babylonians. But Daniel and these 3 men, they're against this because they're against eating this fatty food. They're against the gluttony and the spirit of drunkenness. They don't want to drink all this wine and to become just like the Chaldeans. They say, hey, we're good looking in appearance. We would rather eat vegetables. I think it might be on the next slide. And it tells us that Daniel resolved himself that he would not defile himself with the king's food or with the wine that he drank. He asked the chief of the eunuchs to allow him not to defile himself because he wanted to be respectful of Nebuchadnezzar. Because Nebuchadnezzar makes this great offering to Daniel and his friends. He says, hey, I'm going to have you guys feast with me in my palace. I'm going to have you guys have some of the wine that I drink. And Nebuchadnezzar's being nice to them, but Daniel's like, I don't really want to eat all that stuff. But he's like, how do I tell him that in a nice way? He's like, I don't want to be disrespectful to my new king that I'm serving, but I also don't want to eat this fatty McDonald's and all this fatty food and drink this wine, right? It doesn't tell us that McDonald's in the Bible, but I'm just trying to imagine what some of the fatty food was back in the day, because I don't know what all they were eating. Maybe McDonald's is gone for that long. Maybe Burger King. Maybe Wendy's. But anyways, Daniel does not want to defile himself with this food. And so he goes to the chief eunuchs and tells him, we don't want to eat this food. And God gave Daniel favor and compassion in the sight of the chief of the eunuchs. And the chief of the eunuchs said, I fear my lord the king. He fears Nebuchadnezzar, that's what he's saying, who assigned your food and your drink. For why should he see that you're in worse condition than the youths who are also your age? If you're just eating vegetables, you're just going to look worse than the other people, right? And Nebuchadnezzar's going to tell, and he's going to get mad at me. But Daniel actually says to the steward of the chief of the eunuchs, he says, test us for 10 days. Let us be given vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then let our appearance and the appearance of the youths around us who eat the king's food be observed by you, and deal with your servants according to what you see. So then the chief listened to them in this manner and tested them for 10 days. At the end of 10 days, it was seen that they were better in appearance and fatter in flesh than all the youths who ate the king's food. So the steward took away their food and their wine and gave them vegetables. So that's the first part of this book, Daniel. It opens up with Daniel and his friends having this offer from Nebuchadnezzar, hey, eat this food with me, drink this wine with me. And he's like, they're being respectful, but they're saying no. They don't want to defile the Lord their God. They want to still be good in appearance. They don't want to go into drunkenness. They don't want to eat this food. And so they're respectful of Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians, but they also understand that the Lord their God is who they serve, and not to serve the pleasures of drunkenness and of gluttony. And then we also learn in verse 7, the chief of the eunuchs gave these guys other names. He gave them Babylonian names. Daniel he called Belshazzar. Hananiah he called Shadrach. Mishael he called Meshach. And Azariah he called Abednego. Maybe you're familiar with those names, maybe you're not. We'll get into that tonight. Like I said, you got 2 hours, so just keep turning your listening ears on. But anyways, we'll get into that tonight. Chapter 2, Daniel comes and interprets a dream. Nobody else can interpret for Nebuchadnezzar and prophesies over his life. This leads to Daniel being promoted, just to give you more context. We'll get into that more next week, but like I said, Daniel 2 comes and interprets a dream for Nebuchadnezzar and represents and prophesies over his life. But now we're in Daniel 3. We get this image of gold in chapter 3. Nebuchadnezzar builds this image of gold that is 90 feet high and 9 feet wide. I can't even imagine what 90 feet high, 9 feet wide is. I don't know how tall this building is. Let's say 30, 40 feet, right? 9 feet wide. I don't know if this building's like 9 feet wide. Probably a lot more, but 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide, we're talking about a really big image of gold. Something massive, 9 stories tall and pretty wide, right? And he wants everyone at a certain time of day to come and worship this, because he's like, I'm the king of this land. There is nobody greater than me in this place. You guys are all going to worship me. That's what Nebuchadnezzar is saying. He's building this image of gold so that at a certain point in the day, there's going to be music starting to play, harps, lyres. They're going to be playing like violins, all this stuff. And at that time, once you hear that sound, all these people are going to be forced to worship Nebuchadnezzar. And if you don't worship him, you're going to be put into the fiery furnace. And when you're in the fiery furnace, let's just say it's pretty hot, right? It is very hot in that fiery furnace. In context tells us, if you read on, there's only one time where we read about people being placed in the fiery furnace. And when those people are placed in, the servants putting the people in the fiery furnace actually passed away and burned up because of how hot the furnace was. This was not a place you wanted to go. This was not the sauna at your local gym where you're like, oh, I just got a good workout. I'm trying to go to the sauna. I'm trying to get a little hot. That's not what this furnace is like. This furnace is deadly. This furnace is hot. You're getting cooked. It's hot. And so we go in, and Nebuchadnezzar, in verse 14, Nebuchadnezzar brings these three men in, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, because he hears rumors that while the music's playing, they're not worshiping. They're not worshiping him. Instead, they're not bowing down. Everybody's bowing down to this golden image of Nebuchadnezzar. And these three men are not bowing down. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Instead, they're standing strong in their faith. And Nebuchadnezzar gets mad, and he brings these men in. And Nebuchadnezzar says to them, "Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image that I have set up? Now if you are ready, when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, and bagpipe, and every kind of music, to fall down and worship the image that I have made, well and good. But if you do not worship, you shall immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you out of my hands?" Nebuchadnezzar is pressed because he's like, I thought all these people worshipped me. I thought all these people worshipped the gods I worship. I thought all these people submitted themselves to me and my kingdom.
They're not even worshiping him. They're worshiping a golden statue.
That's what Nebuchadnezzar wanted. Nebuchadnezzar made this image of himself, and he's like, these people got to worship. This represents me. They're worshiping this image that represents me and my kingdom, right? And so Nebuchadnezzar's pressed. He's very angry, and he says, when the sound happens again, y'all better be worshiping. That's what he's saying. And instead, we go to verse 16. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king." But watch this part. "But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up." Because Nebuchadnezzar just tells them in verse 15, he says, "Who is the God who will deliver you out of my hands?" That's what it says in verse 15, word for word. "Who is the God who will deliver you out of my hands?" And they respond and they say, "Our God, the God of Abraham, the God of Israel, the God of Isaac and Jacob, the God of Noah and the ark, the God of all this, the God who sent himself down to save us. That God will save us from this burning fiery furnace. But even if he doesn't, we will still worship him because we know he is true. We know he is true and we are faithful and we serve him. We serve at the feet of the Lord." It's a popular saying in the political or military world. I'm not sure exactly where it originates from, but sometimes people will do some questionable things and they will be questioned about it, and they will say that we serve at the feet of the President of the United States. And that's what they do. They say, whatever mistake we made, we were doing it to protect the President of the United States. We were doing it to fulfill the President of the United States agenda. That's the same, right? I'm not sure if it was word for word correct, but we serve at the feet of the President of the United States. But these men, they say they serve at the feet of the God of Israel. And they say that even if we are not delivered from this burning fiery furnace. Because I don't know if you guys were here, I think it was 3 weeks ago, I talked about the story from 1 Kings. Elijah lighting the fire of the golden calf, and the fire raining down from heaven and proving that the God was real, right? versus the gods of Baal, proving that the God of Israel was real, lighting down a fire. We've seen so many times where God is real throughout the Bible, but these men say, even if God doesn't save us, even if he has an agenda that doesn't involve us being saved today, even if our God doesn't save us, we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. They don't care. They just know that they're not going to worship a false god. And they say, whether or not our God saves us doesn't matter. We're not going to worship these false idols no matter what. And this makes Nebuchadnezzar very angry. We can go to verse 19, I think it is. Nebuchadnezzar's very angry. And who knows that when you can't affirm somebody's sin, that can make the devil inside of someone very angry. When you don't celebrate someone's sin, when you don't celebrate or affirm someone's idol worship, that can make the devil inside of someone very angry. And then Nebuchadnezzar is filled with this fury, it tells us. And the expression of his face changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Maybe his expression was mildly ticked off. Maybe he was grinning. Maybe he was like, you guys think you can get one up on me. Maybe that's what his expression was at. But immediately it tells us he was filled with fury and his expression was changed against the three men. Nebuchadnezzar makes this reckless decision. He orders the furnace heated 7 times more than it was usually heated. 7 times more than it was usually heated. The normal furnace is killing people, but 7 times more than it was usually heated. This is how angry he was with these men. And in fact, it says he ordered some of the mighty men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and to cast them into the fiery furnace. And these three, and I'll give you spoiler, verse 22. We don't have to go to it, but a spoiler. The king's order was urgent. The furnace was overheated. The fire killed those mighty men that were serving at the feet of Nebuchadnezzar. The furnace killed them. These men, Nebuchadnezzar loses some of his best men because he is so enraged and burnt and heats the furnace 7 times more than it was usually heated. The devil inside of Nebuchadnezzar is so upset with these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that he makes this reckless decision and loses some of the mightiest men of his army. And then it tells us in verse 21, these men were bound in their cloaks, their tunics, their hats, and their other garments, and they were thrown into the burning fiery furnace. And then that spoiler, because the king's order was urgent and the furnace overheated, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men fell bound into the burning fiery furnace. Now we have that different Nebuchadnezzar. He is so furious with these men. His expression has changed, and he is furious at these men. He does not want them to survive. He's not scaring them by putting in this furnace. He is just trying to end them. He is so infuriated with these men that he's just trying to prove a point. Everything he's doing is reckless. And then we go into this next verse, and something immediately changes in Nebuchadnezzar. In verse 24, now we have a different Nebuchadnezzar. And it tells us the king Nebuchadnezzar was astonished and rose up in haste. He was astonished. What can make a man like Nebuchadnezzar become astonished and to rise up in haste? What could make him astonished? He is so infuriated with these men. His flesh, the devil inside of him, is so furious with these men that there's not much that's going to change his expression. There's not much that's going to be like change his mind from very furious to astonished, except for the Lord that comes in here. And Nebuchadnezzar, as he's astonished and rises up in haste, he declares to his counselors, did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire? Did we not throw 3 guys in? They answered and said to the king, true, O king. But he answers and says, but I see 4 men unbound walking in the midst of the fire, and they're not hurt, and the appearance of the 4th is like a son of the gods. And there's so many things to unpack here. Because he not only does he say the son of the gods, so we know that it was Jesus walking in the fiery furnace with these three men. But his expression immediately changes. And he is just ready to see these men fall. He's ready to see these men burned to death. And instead, he's astonished and he sees four men. Because he believes in his gods, not the God of Israel. And he believes, whoa, my God is going to put them into the grave. My God is going to burn them up. These men are bold, but they're still going to be done after this, right? But instead, these three men, their God who they've been serving, that's not Nebuchadnezzar's God, their God saves them and walks with them in this fire and allows them to not be burnt by this fire. And Nebuchadnezzar doesn't know what to do now, because he's like, this doesn't make sense to me. In verse 26, Nebuchadnezzar, as he's astonished, he brings these men out of the fire. And he has all his men gather around. He brings Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God. Come out and come here. So Nebuchadnezzar now understands. He says, servants of the Most High God. He understands whatever God they serve is bigger than whatever I'm serving. Because these men just got placed in a fire that's hundreds of degrees, probably like 700 degrees, I don't know. It's hundreds of degrees hot, maybe 1,000. And they're walking around and they don't even smell like smoke. These guys, they're not even burned up at all. But instead, they're walking around unfazed. And so Nebuchadnezzar, he knows whatever he's seeing is bigger than what reality he thinks he knows. And so he says, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire. And the satraps, the prefects, the governors, the king's counselors, all of the king's men are gathered together and saw that the fire had not had any power over the bodies of these men. The hair of their heads was not singed. Their cloaks were not harmed, and they did not even smell like fire. No smell of the fire had come upon them. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him, and set aside the king's command, and yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any god except their own God. Nebuchadnezzar, immediately, his faith changes, because he believed in the powers of whatever the Babylonian gods could do. But instead, he is now believing, whoa, whatever God they serve is now going to be my God, because I want some of that. That's what Nebuchadnezzar is saying. I want some of that power that can save me from a fiery furnace. And I know a lot of us in here today might be dealing with something. We might be having a perfect life right now. School might have just started back and everything's peachy. We might have hundreds in every class. You never know. I don't know some of y'all out there. But if you are going through something, it's not bigger than this fiery furnace that God saves these men from. And God can deliver you if you trust in him. Right? But we go into verse 29, and Nebuchadnezzar